Everyone, so glad. Thank you, Alex. Welcome, everyone. So glad to have you all join us for the Skillet today, where we're going to learn about the open source project DHIS2 app. And I'm really pleased to have today two staff members from FHI360. We have Chris Van Hasselt, who is a friend of mine and also has been working at FHI360 for more than 20 years. And he's got over 30 years of experience as an IT professional. And also we've got a Boomerang, a Jasebe, which I probably butchered your name. Hopefully you can say it correctly in a moment, who's been with FHI 360 for over 10 years. Just to give you all a little bit of background, FHI 360 is an international nonprofit. It is actually based here in Durham, North Carolina, with also another major office in Washington, D.C. And it's an organization that works in human development, primarily in the areas of health, nutrition, and education in 60 to 70 countries around the world, primarily in developing countries. So we're really excited to have Chris and Abu here today to talk to us about the app that they're developing and working on. And so I'm gonna turn it over to them. I think Abu's gonna give Chris is going to introduce Abu. Abu will give a presentation, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions and conversation after that. Go right ahead.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on what. Let's see. So I'm glad to see so many people here this morning, and I just want to congratulate you all, because the fact that you are here means that you've survived your first pandemic. And I say that somewhat in jest, and I also realize that many of you probably, given the size of this audience, have felt the effects of it either in your family or maybe have friends, etc. But I say that in seriousness, because it is the first, and it will probably, from everything I've read and learned about, will probably not be the last. And so the software product that I'm going to demonstrate, or not demonstrate, but show you today, has been instrumental in providing health surveillance in a wide range of areas, including the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think what you'll find is that it's very relevant for what's happening in today's world. And let me share my screen now. Let's see, what do I want to share? I will start off by sharing. It's hard to do this when your bar is up in the top. So what I wanted to start with, and I'm sharing just Chrome right now, this is the FHI360 website, www.fhi360.org. And you can learn more about our organization there if you care to look into that. The main product we're going to look at today is a product called DHIS2. DHIS2 is a managed open source product that's managed by HISP, which is an organization affiliated with the University of Oslo. And the nature of this program is that over the years, as it's affiliated with the university, they have a group of developers within the university that work with students to continue development on the product, on the DHIS2 platform as a whole. The DHIS2 platform runs on the Linux stack, and it is, broadly speaking, broad brush picture of it, it's a database for tracking health outcomes and but it can be used in many different ways. You can think of it as a very focused database system with a lot of features that make it applicable for health programs, but also it's been used in logistics and as well as education programs and other kind of programs for tracking the number of individuals that maybe complete a program or go through get screened or immunized or vaccinated, various different things in the health sphere. It's used around the world. The reach of DHIS2, as I mentioned, or as kind of Lori alluded to, FHI 360 works in around 60 countries around the world, mostly in the developing world, and DHIS2 is used in many of those countries for health programs that are funded by typically ministries of health, local ministries of health in a particular country, or by US funding, or by philanthropic funding through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and other organizations that provide funding for running these. DHIS2 as an open source platform is very affordable, which makes it a great choice for deployment in the developing world, where governments and organizations are often very poorly resourced. And it has gained a lot of popularity and support from USAID and UNICEF and other organizations. To give you a quick idea about how it was used in COVID, in tracking COVID, whoops, I'm rolling the wrong way here. Let's see. This shows you, and all of this is available on the DHIS2.org website. This is a page about the COVID-19 work, how DHIS2 used was to support COVID-19 response around the world. And you can see it's been used for surveillance and vaccine tracking in countries across Africa primarily. If you want to learn more about DHIS2, first of all, I cannot give you an overall picture of the entire platform. But what I will show you is, if you want to learn more, you can go to this site, play.dhis2.org, and I can I'll log out real quick and show you how this works typically. Well, let's see if I can get all the people out of the way. So at play.dhis2.org, you can go in. It's a site that's run as a working example of DHIS2. They give you a password to log in on the home page. So you can just type in admin and then its password district. And they recycle this site every night, so it's not really a security risk. They basically wipe the server and reload it every day. And you can then log in and see what DHIS2 looks like. Different versions of it are available at play.dhis2. So you can see the latest version or upcoming versions of the DHIS2 platform. And as you can see, it has visualization, data visualization features. And these are various demonstration dashboards that they have set up about DHIS2 and to showcase some of its strengths. Occasionally, you'll go in here and see items that are failing. And as I said, this is a demo site where they reload it every day, and people will go in and make changes to it. You can go in and make changes to it under that account and see what happens. So a lot of times when you're trying to develop for DHIS2, people may be using this site as a back-end test bed. And then if you want to try downloading it yourself, you can. There is a site available from the DHIS2.org website with downloads, and it has the latest releases and older releases too. And the reason that's important is if you were working with a client, for instance, that was using an older version, you'd want to replicate that environment, of course. I want to go back to the play site for just 1 second. When you look here under this little waffle menu at the top of the page, you'll see various apps that are part of the platform. Most of these apps are part of the core DHIS platform, DHIS2 platform, but some of them are developed by third-party individuals. And I'm going to introduce my colleague, Abu Murray, who has developed a couple of apps for DHIS2 and using DHIS2 as the app platform. And I think where it may be of interest to you is that the development work in DHIS2 primarily is in React. So when there aren't features or functions that people need in DHIS2, in many cases, developers will develop their own apps that work with the API in the platform. And I couldn't tell you much more about that. Abu is the expert on it. He is the developer that has really done some exceptional work for FHI 360. And so I'm pleased to introduce Abu Murray Ejak Hegby. I stumble over the pronunciation of his name, and I'm sure he can correct me. And like Lori was saying, he's been at FHI for 11 years with 18 years experience in the IT industry. And since 2018, he's been deeply involved in DHIS2 development with a focus on programmatic solutions and innovation. And currently, Abu serves as manager of programmatic solutions and the innovation lead, where he is responsible for implementing DHIS2 solutions that fulfill needs within our program portfolio. And his expertise and leadership have been instrumental in advancing capabilities of DHIS2 within our organization. He's originally from Nigeria, but now resides in the UK with his family. He's a dedicated husband, father of 2 sons, and he has a great passion for technology. And I've had the pleasure of working with him for a good number of years, since 2018 for sure. And as FHI, especially going into the pandemic, reverted to an all virtual environment. I've never met Abu in person, but I've been pleased to work with him over the years virtually, and we meet probably 2 or 3 times a week to talk DHIS2. And so without further ado, I'll turn it over to him and turn off my mic and camera. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for that introduction. Hope everyone can hear me. All right, so I'm just going to take us through a quick introduction. I will try to not go too technical because I know the open source DHIS2 platform is just the first time a lot of people, I guess maybe all of you are the first time you're hearing about it. DHIS2 app is my focus right now, but we have a whole scale where any professional can fit in. I've moved through applying DHIS2 as an administrator, also a backend, providing backend support. But recently, I've been focused around My focus has always been around improving with the apps. So what kind of apps can we develop with DHIS2? And that's why we're here. I'm just going to expose us to this. So most primarily, we can do almost everything with DHIS2 with regards app development. And what I mean, for example, from data collection, analysis, maps, and that's why I put some of the focus that any developer can look into and create a particular niche. There are organizations and companies that just provide apps, DHIS2 apps, like we have in the Android Play Store, that concept. So organizations like that exist. And like I said earlier, I want to introduce you all to the possibilities and the financial gains that could come out from looking into this area. And the benefits of the DHIS2 platform and you focusing on an open source environment to develop your skills. One of the areas I look at as a manager, and one of the areas I've looked at from my experience is that I'm not really a fan of custom applications from scratch. And the reason is because it's of the level of support that will be needed. And one of the areas that I always encourage is to build on an existing stack. For example, this open source environment, and DHIS2 is one of them. So it's active. The application is very active in development, like you rightly said. University of Oslo, they have a specialized team that specializes in coming up with new features to meet the demands in the community, and building the DHIS2 applications. It's on top DHIS2 platform and provides the scalability where we can handle a lot of data, because primarily data-driven application is what we push for, because we're talking about health and all that means that you're constantly collecting data, you're constantly analyzing data, you're constantly reporting data and all that. So DHIS2 has it's a platform that can handle that level of need. So it's not only flexibility. You can just quickly, just like if you have if you have experience in developing apps, for like maybe it could be Android app, whatever, how quickly it is to just roll on the SDK, Android SDK, and start building on top of a particular framework. DHIS2 provides that level of that level, and now relating it with how it's been used within organizations, for example, WHO, UN, and all the other international organizations. It is very well used, and that's why it's very marketable to be able to learn the app development with DHIS2 approach. Talking about community support, for example, it's fully supported in community, a very large community. We recently had the conference in Oslo, which I went there, and we were part of a team that submitted our apps, and we were finalists in that particular competition. So what are we looking at within the DHIS2 environment, and why are we using React? That is a technology that has been embraced in developing apps within DHIS2, and hopefully, from what I heard before I joined, that is actually the focus, or rather, that's one of the focus that you're all having this period. So I think that's why I'm here. So we have the DHIS2 libraries, which can be consumed using the React experience, and that facilitates the integration with the DHIS2 backend. So a lot of developers just use the DHIS2 backend and begin to build the apps using the libraries that are available. So the focus is, when developing as a developer, is the integration with DHIS2. So just like any other conventional React application, setting up the background is the first thing to look at. And I'm a fan of Yen as the package as using Yen as package manager. So I intend to take us just briefly how to do the quick hello world and expose us to the environment where you can then explore. And maybe eventually we could have some maybe I don't maybe some other sessions. I'm not sure, but I am committed to provide any mentoring, especially the fact of the job opportunities that are around this environment. Especially in the US, I know that the focus has always been around the kind of applications and not really around this kind of application because the focus is in the third world. But the good thing about it is that we have remote jobs and all that, and a lot of US companies implement programs in all these locations, and anybody can pick up a job and work remotely and support. I have a lot of people I know that work in the US implementing React applications. So this is just a standard process. I will go through this and the create React app procedure, hopefully with the command line, and try to also integrate with a very simple DHIS2 on components and just pull data. So this literally is just the focus when you're starting up with the app. So like I said earlier, what is the focus? So what you just need to learn, like I know, most of you already have experience with React, and if you don't, we have resources everywhere that can help you with that. Understand the DHIS2 API components is what another thing. I have resources. Along one of this what I'm going to talk about, the libraries to consume, and also I still improve my skills around adopting best practice, and this is fundamental to every developer. You might design an application today and you realize that tomorrow it's not. Maybe tomorrow you realize it wasn't really optimal the way you implemented it. So the environment is there to constantly they provide materials constantly, resources that we constantly go in to do more like training. And yeah, so basically that. So this is I'll just putting this out there. The environment that needs to set up depending on your IDE, but I'm a fan of Visual Studio Code, installing your package manager, and the academy is something that is very important, very cool. So I'm going to just go to open this site. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Cool. Sorry. I was trying to open this. Cool. So there's an academy online that is well. If you follow this procedures, you can get started. And like I said, they put everything together as much as possible. Like you can see the 1, the 2, and all that. These are actual academies, but after the academies, they put everything online. So anybody can access it because this is an open community, like I said earlier. And the good thing about it, you don't need to pay for trainings. The resources are all available, very brief trainings, straight to the point. You know how to fetch data, know how to process data, know how to post data, and all the normal React skill that you have, just dump it into this and you're good to go. So that's this website I just showed you. Also, we have developer interface where all the resources required to learn and also to use to get information that you need to build your apps. We have all the information available. I'm always here, looking for improvements and also looking for resources that I need to develop my app. We also have this was I put this earlier. We also have the component sites. This I use this for UI development, where how to also use them, consume them. So like for example, using the UI components available, like for example, the app, the buttons, calendars, everything you need. And the good thing about it is if it doesn't come with a particular component you need is not available here, you can pull that from any third-party library and use. Sorry. Then we also have, like I said earlier, I'm just introducing us, so you will need to explore this by yourselves. So more and more information I'm bringing forward. So this, for example, helps us for the usage of most of all these tools. For example, okay, this works perfectly in my Chrome. I'm not going to my Edge. So they have how to use the consume the particular components and use them within your apps. Is provided within this. I will share this presentation slide so that you're going to use this also. And lastly, because I've talked about this earlier, one of the fundamental guide that we adhere to as developers within this space, because we are developers that are not, I won't say we're not capital driven, if I put it that way. Like you're having your Salesforce and all that. Those are applications that, all around money and all that. So, but we design applications that support humanity in terms of development, poverty, alleviation, and all that, eradication. Sorry, and all the SDG targets that we meet or we aim to meet. So we are guided by principles, and this is, I'm putting this here. So I also encourage that you get exposed to this area, this concept of development. We're not. It's not for most of the things we do are not for sale. For example, I have a particular. I'm going to also quickly open the community. Yeah, oh, this is one perfect. So this is the community, the competition that we did. You can see that. Well, we didn't come out first, sadly, but look at our application here. We were part of the finalists. But what am I trying to say here? If you look at all these apps, you will always find the GitHub repo. Irrespective, you always find the GitHub repo of all these applications. It's always open out there. It's open out there to always use. So, for example, now I have that repo that I mentioned earlier. Look at it here. The one that I just showed you just now. It's here. It's open. It's public. You can see it's public. It's public. So it's out there. That's the concept of our development. It's out there. It's in the open. We're not developing because we want to keep the source code and all the tight. Like, it's out there. So that's the whole concept. So having said all that, I will quickly see if it's possible to take us through the app hello world process. I think I have some time. I don't really know if okay, I will try, because you have to build the project and all that, but I'll just give it a try. But before that, I will say, just in case time is not my friend now, I will just quickly show us a sample of code I'm actually working on a particular project right now. So I will just quickly show us exactly what is going on here. Just briefly, I will also show us what I'm trying to achieve. So we have an application that I'm trying to develop within the office. It's still in the development phase, but I can demonstrate quickly something. So the essence of this application now is to develop to come up with a solution to check duplicate entries in a particular system, and also to make decisions based on if we see duplicate entries. So let me just refresh this. Now, this is on the DHIS2 platform, but I'm plugging it. It has not been built yet, but I have the ability to be able to plug into a particular DHIS2 platform to showcase. So for example, now, this is how I launched this app that is running now. I will have to show that. So for this app to run, this is a DHIS2. You can see I ran this command, and this is a DHIS2 server that I'm looking at to assess and test this app. This is dynamic. Any server address can go. I can put my play server address here. It's fine, and whatever I put here is also fine. So I put that in, and I'm able to go directly into any DHIS2 I point to. As long as I have the permission to do that, I will have access to it. So for example, now I've just this is just, I'm not done yet, but I just want to show you the possibilities. And it's just simple React app running on DHIS2. So what I'm meant to do on this system, for example, is to select a particular location within a system that has data, for example. And these are some parameters that I set earlier. And just, for example, just find duplicates. So these are simple, this is a basic app, nothing complex, but I'm using, for example, the Fuse JS library here. These are the third party, this is the third party libraries that I'm using for this app, for example. So in as much as I'm working on, I'm trying to connect to a DHIS2 application, I'm not designing this application just like a standalone. So like you can just come and develop a React standalone application, for example, good and fine. However, the whole concept of adapting to an open source like DHIS2 application, while a lot of open source applications, is because of the purpose. The purpose of developing this application is to serve the humanity, if I put it that way. So that is the mindset of the. So we're designing this to adapt to a particular open source system, which is DHIS2. So why I came here good and fine. So this has went to the server, pulled data, and did some level of matching, for example. So I'm not done yet, like I said, still at the so for example, if you look at this, it's matching with this one, for example. I'm grouping them together. I have the ability to make decisions to open, delete, merge, ignore all, and all that. So I just giving us a whole idea, and like I said, I use Fuse.js to implement this. So I'm just giving us a basic idea on what can be achieved using DHIS2. And I have a particular material, a Word document I put together, more like a starter pack for anyone that needs to set up the environment. Like I said, install Visual Studio, set up your manager and all that. So I would say, Chris, I can open for question and answer, while from the back end behind, I will try to do an only word app, because I know I don't want it to take too much time. So I will still have this running while we can be responding to any questions, if that is fine.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Good. So the floor is open for any question.
Yeah, and I guess take off your mic and ask.
All right.
So I think someone asked in the chat, how did this help during COVID-19? So like I was saying earlier, this was used so very quickly after the pandemic lockdown began, an organization working with the University of Oslo developed a package, like a database configuration for tracking immunizations and also disease surveillance. And disease surveillance essentially is trying to find how many new cases you have. If you're looking at a country as a whole, how many, where are those cases located, et cetera. So I think you saw when I was showing the DHIS2 Play site there that within the DHIS2 platform, it incorporates mapping capabilities. So you can configure data visualizations that would show, chloropleth graphs or other ways of showing how many cases would or are occurring in a particular state or at a particular hospital. What I'll say about the DHIS2 platform in that regard is that everything in DHIS2 is configured around what I like to call geographical axes. So what I mean by that is the first thing you do when you set up a DHIS2 system is identify organization units, as that's the term that they use for the area that you're covering. So for instance, if you were looking at the United States, you would have a top level of the country and then lower levels of each state, and then lower levels of that below that of each county within state, and then possibly lower levels within that of each city. Or you may just focus on, you could set up your organization unit to just track information within a particular state, say Arizona. And so your top level would then be Arizona and all the counties below that. So everything kind of hangs off that geographical axis. That's sort of the spine of the data, if you think of it that way. And so with COVID-19, it was very important, and I'm sure many of you saw graphs like this from the CDC and other organizations, but in countries around the world that are using DHIS2 through their ministries of health, they are doing the same thing, tracking how many patients have shown up at hospitals. They were also using kind of DHIS2 for logistical support of knowing how many vaccines were sent to a particular location. And so they're trying to match up, where are the hotspots where we see a lot of COVID cases, and making sure that that location has vaccinations or, oxygen, other materials that were needed to treat people infected with COVID-19. So I hope that answers that question.
I think there's a couple other questions here. Thanks, Leonardo. What are some of the coding principles and best practices that you have found to be the most helpful in building an application or API that can remain very flexible to the specific end user?
Okay, let me respond to that. And well, I will look at this from two angles. Because I started off using Python. I majored in using Python development with the DHIS2. So we have different programming languages, doesn't matter, right? So one major thing is because DHIS2 is specifically, I won't say specifically, but mostly used in developing countries, and they have infrastructure issues, which especially when it comes to internet, right? How fast is the internet? We're talking about also having devices that hold data. So how we consider development when development of applications when with all these things in mind. So for example, now when you're pulling data, how large is the data? All right, how do you manage it? Um, Also, when you're processing data within the system, we also look at having how would I put it? Performance with regards processing the data. For example, your throughput, do you look at, are we considering the throughput? Most developers that are experienced in developing applications in areas that do not have infrastructural issues do not really put in mind that those applications could be used in areas that have infrastructure issues, especially like I mentioned, the internet challenges. So when we're modeling the structure of processing the data, from the request you're pulling, the page size, okay, for example, let me look at this. Let me show you this, for example. Now, we're going for 50 page size, for example. It's not because we can't go beyond this. However, we're putting in mind that whoever is going to use this system might be somewhere in Africa that has slow internet and something. So we always look at the minimal configuration as much as possible, but also optimal in meeting the need. I don't know if I'm making any sense. So yeah, so that's one of the best practices we look at. Again, privacy and data security is very key in our industry. So we're talking about having PIIs, personal identifiable information of individuals. So within the code, you need to be guided on how to do your code base to ensure that all these standard principles as much as possible. You don't you encrypt, you ensure encryption is there, you ensure that data at rest is safe and all that. It has to be thought through when developing. And just off my head, I just came up with that. I can think of now. Is there another question?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you so much. I especially appreciate hearing about, really having to think about where it's going to be used. So, okay, you have to think about, okay, if there's going to be slow internet in this one location, you really have to plan.
So if I can add to that, so, when we're doing, planning systems out, one of the features of DHIS2 as a platform is that they have very good support for mobile development on the Android platform. And the key thing about that is that they focus on data collection tools that can work offline. So a health worker who may be going through a rural area in Africa can collect data by working with the clients that he or she is meeting with, and then when they're back at their main office or at a hospital and can connect to the internet, they can upload their data at that time. So it's really designed to work either online or offline. And that all comes, for somebody developing for, let's say, Salesforce or something like that. Often they don't even think about it because the audience for those kind of tools are either, US based, European, in Singapore, et cetera, where the internet is, you can practically count on it like water. It's not always true, but in every single case. But for the most part, that kind of development wouldn't work in the developing world. There are just too many unknown variables out there.
Yeah, thank you for that. It definitely reminds me of one of the projects we work on at Code the Dream that's intended for use in rural areas serving migrant and seasonal farm workers, where there is also very little coverage. And so that's actually something we are navigating right now, is how to ensure that the service providers have a offline mode for that particular app. Here's a really great question also from Leonardo. What are your thoughts on how data has and can improve equitable distribution of health resources? And what are the gaps that still need to be addressed? Great question.
Okay, well, this question is more like it's very academic. It's nice. Our attempt to respond with this based on our experience, right? We use what we do, for example, within FHI, right? We majorly reports is the major thing that we do. Like the funders put money out there. They want us to, for example, reduce the prevalence of HIV somewhere in Africa, you know? So this money has gone out there, for example. And how do you know exactly where the next round of funds should go to? So if data has been collected for let me say FY 2023, no, 2022/2023, for example. The data has been collected, analyzed, and everybody sees all this. HIV is going down here. Funding of maybe $50 million was given to this program and all that. That data for that FY that year can also inform the funders to say, you know what, we're meeting our target here. Now, this 50 million we'll put here, we don't need it anymore. We need this 50 million, or we're going to give them 30 million in next year. We're taking 20 million extra and shifting to this location. So part of the things we do as FHI is to provide this data to our funders. For example, the US government through USAID, right? They make all these decisions, you know? So again, it could be from the data you collect, right? You could also see maybe there's infancy deaths because of childbirth, for example, or infancy death because of poor nutrition. You know, you can see all these indicators all over the place. So the data, like I said, that you've just collected will inform the funders to provide the resources, health resources, like you mentioned, for those areas. So during one of my master's courses, one of the research I did was using machine learning to show that the human deficiency index, the HDI, of a particular location determined the amount of vaccines that reach them. So, for example, when the West, when I mean the West, I'm talking of US, Canada, and every other country, right, where working on provisioning, you know, sorry, I say provisioning, providing services for the citizens, right? A lot of money went into research, you know, and all that. Most countries procured the amounts of vaccine they needed. However, at that time, there was a lot of politicking because the underdeveloped countries didn't have access to this level of these vaccines. So data, and this was going to the fact that there was this poverty that was causing it. Could it be the influence that they didn't have? The same problem is affecting the entire world, but some countries were getting better, but served better. So this goes down to the fact that I use data to show that the health resources in this scenario now, which was the COVID vaccination, was influenced by the wealth and power of the country. So if you are less influential and less powerful and have less money, you do not have access, you come last. So all these countries get first and you come last. It comes in by donation. The US donating this to this country, UK donating that to that country. And again, this is what the data helps us to do, to show. And that's what we do. We develop these things for humanity. And that's the whole concept of what we're doing.
I really appreciate that answer, Abu. And I think I want to just ask one final question. And Miguel, I don't know if we're going to have time for your question because I want to make sure we wrap up in time. I know some of us have a meeting right after this. But Chris and Abu, I am hoping you can share, do you have any advice for new developers who want to use their tech skills and their coding skills to help better our world? You know, there's a lot of tech companies out there, the Facebooks or all the other, the Amazons of the world that may be recruiting developers, but there's a lot of folks who want to be able to use their skills really for try to make our world a little better place, like we want to do at Code the Dream. So what's your advice for developers who want to get into tech for good, or who can use their skills to help in projects like what you've described?
I'll take a stab at that. And I would just say, my unlike Abu, who's very, deeply involved in coding, I am more of a kind of mile wide, inch deep, knowledgeable person about technology. So the biggest thing you can do is to learn, to keep your mind open to learning all kinds of things. What constantly I am challenged with in my work at FHI is that there's only so much I know about how public health processes work. So, to expand my knowledge of that, I actually took an online course through UNC to get a certificate in public health. And it's not the same as an MPH. It's just a kind of broad coverage of core concepts in public health. And that helped me a lot to understand what the public health process is. So whatever, field you're going into or interested in, let's say it's, climate change, the environment, you can't just be focused on learning or, all the details of Python or all the details of a particular platform. Because that platform is used within a context. And if you don't understand fully, or at least to some level, the context, then you're not going to be able to, meet the requirements needed for a particular project. The other thing I'll say, and this goes back to learning, and Abu can probably attest to this as well. If you decide, okay, I'm going to be a Python programmer, or I'm going to learn React, that's great. That's fantastic. But be prepared to learn another programming language down the road. You can't rely on one particular technology. It just changes too fast. And in fact, there's a book I read, which I highly recommend to all of you, called if I'm remembering the title correctly, it's called The Pragmatic Programmer. And one of the things that is recommended is teach yourself a new language every year, which is a really hard challenge. But, I've found over the years, if I sat down and thought about how many different languages I've had to become familiar with in my too many years in IT work, it would be a pretty long list. And then I know that tomorrow it will be something new, right? So prepare to learn and to keep learning. So learn to learn, if I can put it that way.
Great advice. Thank you so much. How about you, Abu?
Well, for me, like I said, for you to develop, right, you develop against a particular system. Don't just say you're starting an application from scratch. It doesn't work again these days. We have a lot of resources to help us. But again, I don't trust a developer that just comes up with a particular code base. I don't trust it because the developer can leave me, can hold me. I will constantly depend on that developer. So I would say pick up a platform like I'm talking about DHIS2 now. We also have other open source platforms. Pick up a platform, right, and master to develop against that platform, right? Not just generic coding. So if we're talking of React now, we can just go to any Udemy and learn how to do React. That is generic. However, React against what? For example, React against DHIS2 is more marketable than just React within our space. But however, having the React knowledge is nice to give you generic base, but always work against a particular platform. I know, for example, you can use Angular on Salesforce. So when you're learning your Angular, for example, are you just learning Angular as a standalone or learning Angular to be able to implement solutions on Salesforce? It's different. It's a different thing. So that is the mindset.
Awesome. Thank you so much to the both of you. We really appreciate all of your work. Oh, Abu, did you want to say something? Oh, okay. I see that Abu put his LinkedIn in there. That's fantastic. Hope everyone will connect, take advantage of and leverage those connections that we're making. And really appreciate you all, and we'll look forward to seeing you again another time. Thank you so much.